no signs of progressing towards dementia. With me so far? So you've got people who are more than average impaired, we think because of normal aging. It's not at the level of impairment you would associate with dementia, so they're not like cutoff scores for dementia, or they don't have the functional impairment levels that you would associate with dementia. And for the amount of time we've observed them so far over time, it doesn't seem to be getting worse from observation to observation. So we've known them for a couple of years, and they don't seem any worse now than they were 2 years ago. And they would call it age-associated memory impairment, and they would be interested in doing some interventions to help people with this because old people worry a lot about their memories, and it would be nice to do something for them. That's the main thing. The more cynical take is they were trying to find a rationale to sell normal people Aerosol to get their dementia-related drugs.
Okay.
Maybe not. I don't know. Now what happens next is you got this kind of term thing going on for us. Some people call it age-associated memory impairment. Some people call it mild cognitive impairment. They look at it separately in the network of Alzheimer's disease research centers, and as Martha mentions in the early stages of her article, huge proportions of people with mild cognitive impairment go on to develop dementia and show the signs of pathology exam after death of having the plaques and tangles and all that dementia. So it starts to look like, depending on who you talk to, almost everybody or everybody with MCI is actually early onset dementia.
Well, how early is the personality change that we get in AD in particular? Is that anywhere in mild cognitive impairment?
Well, Martha, she didn't
Because that seems to be one of the
particular
first changes.
Cognitive changes. This is another thing you want to look at as you read that article is it's like some of the personality stuff she points to and some of the cognitive stuff she points to. You've got 3 or 4 different papers in the same general domain, but they don't pick out the same specific change as an early indicator. So that's a problem for diagnosis. I've never been a big fan of the personality change and dementia thing, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about this. My read of what Martha has to say about it is that a lot of it boils down to people are noticing, family, the individual themselves and or family are noticing changes in either what they're able to do or in the way that they're reacting to things long before you see the neuropsych test kind of changes. And yeah, I think that's almost certainly true. Whether it's clearly, whether it's diagnostic yet, I think is much trickier. So at best, there may be some mild cognitive impairment that doesn't progress. But there's some dementia that doesn't progress. So far, so we actually got, we're down to bullet point 3, but as I say, I missed the bullet point, so when it's posted, this will be bullet point 4 of dementia. Dementia is a psychiatric syndrome. And we'll go over what DSM-4 has to say about it at the general level in just a minute. But the key features are that you have declines in memory and declines in some other cognitive function other than memory. Now, Storat also argues that we ought to get rid of the insistence that one of the changes be in memory. We'll see what happens in future versions. I don't know if I'll make DSM-5 or not. Stay tuned. Most of you will probably live long enough to see 6 and 7. They're aiming for about every 15 years now, so actually DSM-5, if they stay on schedule, and I sort of doubt they will, but if they stay on schedule, DSM-5 will be out in 2012, so it's kind of just around the corner. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with some things. I know some of the people working on personality disorders, and I think the personality disorder section is going to be very different. There are rumors about what they're doing with, like, depression and anxiety. And it'd be really nice if they did something that would make sense for diagnosing older adults' depression. It'd be kind of a mess for a long time. But we'll find out in a couple of years. They're keeping it more of a secret because I think they got burned last time with all the press coverage. Every time they tried to have a meeting, they had feminists marching about some of the diagnoses that they didn't want to be giving women. Vietnam vets marching in favor of PTSD. Decided we didn't have to deal with all that until it's too late. So dementia has to have this characteristic of decline. So if you were never any good at something, the fact that you're still not good at it when you're old wouldn't be a sign of dementia. If you've always lost your car keys, like my wife, losing your car keys is not going to be a sign of dementia. If you've always been really good about balancing your checkbook and then you can't balance your checkbook anymore, that's at least a sign to be concerned. Yeah, but it has to have that characteristic of loss. And dementia, because it's the overarching psychiatric term that can get more specific, but dementia does not have to be explicitly related to an underlying cause, although one assumes that there always is an underlying cause. And then as we get more specific about the causes, you get different kinds of prevalence estimates and so forth. So not all dementia is Alzheimer's disease. We'll talk about different kinds of subtypes. So you've got not all cognitive impairment is dementia. Not all dementia is Alzheimer's disease. You're 2 steps away from cognitive impairment and bad scores. And some of the kinds of things that matter to and will be noticed by family and by people with dementia themselves, and that also play a role in narrowing down what the underlying cause of dementia is are the symptoms pervasive or more localized? Alzheimer's disease is an example of a disorder that, at least as it progresses, becomes quite pervasive. It affects most all of the brain. Vascular dementias can be quite focal. So you can have damage just in 1 or 2 or 3 parts of the brain and not in other parts of the brain. Another key thing is, are they progressing? It does happen to be the case. Certainly Alzheimer's disease is progressing. If the strokes are ongoing over time, then you have a progressive pattern. We'll talk a little bit more about the different kinds of patterns of stroke a little bit. But occasionally people will have a stroke that produces some dementia. Not all strokes produce dementia. Some only produce movement and don't affect the cognition. Movement disorders, paralysis, etc. that don't affect cognition. But you can have a stroke that affects cognition, and then the person can get their blood pressure and other risk factors under control, and maybe never has a stroke again. And so it would be progressive. So if it affects the part of the brain that controls being able to calculate, they're never able to add and subtract again, but it doesn't get any worse. Like typically, the pattern after strokes is you get really bad and you have some bounce back. Usually not to the premorbid level, but some improvement over some period of time post-stroke, and then you come back out. Okay, now let's do the doctor. Okay, so this is specific to dementia, the Alzheimer's type, but A and B are consistent across all of the dementias. And it's the development of multiple cognitive deficits. One of them has to be a memory impairment.